The Third Testament, Revelations of Jesus Christ, Chapter 23, Inspirations and Revelations of God. Divine Inspirations. Thus saith the Lord. Disciples, if my word comes to you and you do not understand it, you doubt it, and I tell you, when uncertainty torments you, retire to the solitude of the countryside, and there, in the midst of nature, where you have only the fields, the mountains, and the firmament for witnesses, ask your master again. Enter deeply into his word, and soon you will have his sweet reply. Then you will feel transported, inspired, and full of an unknown spiritual joy. In this way, you will cease to be the men of little faith, knowing that the Word of God contains truth. But to discover it, it is necessary to know how to penetrate it with devotion and purity, for it is a holy place. When you are prepared and wish to know something, your thirst for light will attract the divine light. How many times have I told you, go up to the mountain and tell me there your anxieties, your pains, and your needs. Jesus, by his example, taught you these lessons in the second era. Remember my example when I retired to the desert to pray before beginning my preaching. Remember that in the last days of my stay among men, rather than going to the synagogue to pray, I sought out the loneliness of the Mount of Olives to converse with the Father. Nature is a temple of the Creator, where all is raised up to worship Him. There you may receive the radiation of your Father directly and in complete purity. There, far from selfishness and human materialism, you will feel wise inspirations coming to your heart that move you to practice good in your path. You must be vigilant disciples, for I will not speak to you only through this conduit. I will seek to contact your spirit while your body sleeps as well. I will teach you to enter that repose prepared, and so that your spirit may be freed to rise to the regions of light, from where it will receive the prophecy to illuminate its road, transmitting its message to your understanding. I have never been far from you, as you have sometimes thought, and I have never been indifferent to your pains, nor deaf to your calls. What has happened is that you have not concerned yourselves with refining your higher senses, hoping to perceive me with the senses of the flesh. I tell you that the time when I conceded that to men is long past. If you had bothered a little to develop some of your spiritual gifts, such as the elevation of your thoughts, prayer, premonition, prophetic dreams, or spiritual vision, I assure you that through any of these you would be communicating with me, and thereby receiving answers to your questions and divine inspiration to your thoughts. I am entirely disposed to talk to you, always awaiting your elevation and spiritual preparation to please you and give you the happiness of my communication with your spirit. It requires only that you also be prepared with great purity to achieve that grace. Ask your wise men, and if they are sincere, they will tell you that they have asked God for inspiration, and I would give them more inspiration if they would request it with greater love for their brethren and less vanity for themselves. Truly I say to you that all true knowledge that you have accumulated comes from me. All that is pure and elevated I will use during this period for your benefit, for I have granted it to you for that purpose. This is the period in which my spirit is constantly speaking to man's conscience, as well as to his spirit, his heart, and to his reason. My voice reaches man through his trials, and many are awakening as a result of those trials. Since those who are supposed to be guiding and teaching humanity are asleep, and would prefer for humanity to remain dormant forever. In the third era, I have come to carry out with the clarity of my manifestations, that which has been impossible for men, communicate through human understanding. Understand me, disciples, because in the spirit-to-spirit communication that awaits you, you will feel my presence eternally. If you know how to prepare, you will not again say to me, Lord, Why do you not come? Or can't you see my pain? You will not speak to me in this way, disciples. Truly, I tell you, he who speaks to me in this way gives tangible proof of his ignorance and lack of preparation. I do not wish to see my disciples distanced from me. I want you to say to me in your spirit, Master, you are among us. Our spirit sends you. Your wisdom is the source of my inspiration. That is the true confession I wish to hear from you. The adaptation of the divine revelations to human understanding. In order to manifest the divine, your languages are limited. For that reason, in all eras I have had to speak to you through parables, through metaphors. But as you can see, even by speaking to you thus, you have understood me very little, because you have lacked the necessary will to analyze my manifestations. In every era you have awaited me, and yet when you have had me in front of you, you have not recognized me, due to your lack of vigilance and spirituality. I tell you that in whatever form my presence is seen, it will always embody truth and divine essence. I have told you that I have made use of many forms to manifest myself to the world, but these have not been disguises to hide my spirit from you, but rather for the purpose of humanizing myself, limiting myself, and thus making myself heard and felt by men. Now I tell you that before you express judgment, listen to this voice until the instant of your convincing or enlightenment, when in your spirit there shines a light. While men persist in their blindness and ignorance, they force God, who before all else is a father, to humanize himself, limit himself, and make himself small before his children to be understood. When will you allow me to show myself to you with the greatness that you should see me? You must be great to conceive of me as great, and that is why I have come once and again to give you spiritual greatness, so that you can have the infinite joy of knowing your Father, of feeling His love, and of hearing the divine concert that vibrates above you. The outward part of that revelation of the Father in Sinai was the stone that served as medium for the inscription of the divine law. The outward part of the communication of God with men through Jesus was the vessel, the human form of Christ. In this time, the outward form of my communication has been the speaker, for which reason this form, as it did in times past, shall come to its end. Understand that you are the children of the spiritualist people, who must not sustain themselves with forms, but with essences. If you understand my word well, you will never again fall into idolatry, nor adhere to outward practices, to forms, to the transitory, for you will go always in search of the essential, the eternal. Different means of divine revelations. Mankind would like to have the visit of a new Messiah who would save them from the abyss, or at least to hear the humanized voice of God vibrating in the wind. And I say to you that it would suffice for you to observe a little, or to withdraw your spirit into meditation to give it sensitivity, so that you would hear how everything speaks to you. If you think it is impossible that the stones speak, I say to you that not only the stones, but everything that surrounds you speaks to you of your Creator, so that you will awaken from your dreams of grandeur, of pride and materialism. The illuminated of previous times always beheld rays of brilliance. They always listened to my word. The prophets, the inspired ones, the forerunners, the founders of doctrines, of elevated spirituality, have given testimony of hearing voices as if proceeding from clouds, from the mountains, from the wind, or from somewhere which they could not pinpoint. That they heard the voice of God as if proceeding from tongues of fire and in mysterious echoes. Many heard, saw, and felt through their senses, others through their spiritual attributes, in a manner similar to what is happening in this period. Truly, I say to you, those who received my messages through their corporeal senses interpreted the divine inspiration spiritually, and they did it according to their material and spiritual preparation, and in agreement with the times in which they lived on earth, in a way that is taking place today with the human instruments, whom you call spokesmen or faculties. But I must say to you that during previous times, as well as the present, they have mingled their own ideas, or those which predominated around them, with the purity of the divine revelations, and fully aware of it, or not, they have altered the purity and unlimited essence of the truth, which, truthfully, I say to you, is love in its greatest manifestations. The vibrations and spiritual inspirations were with them, and not only the first ones, but also the last, have given and will give testimony of that inspiration, which reached their spirit almost always in an unexplained way, in a manner similar to that which happens to many today, and will happen to many more tomorrow. The words, interpretations, and form of behavior are credited to men, and the times in which they live, but above everyone is the supreme truth. From time to time it becomes necessary for my spirit to manifest itself in a form accessible and comprehensible to your understanding. That need to speak to you comes from your disobedience to my law, from your distancing from the true path. Man is the most rebellious creature in the creation because of his free will. Until now, he has not wanted to follow the dictates of his conscience. My word comes to stop some, to guide others, and to strengthen all with truth, and save them from the abyss. Make no objection to the way in which I now manifest myself, so different from that of the second era. Understand that I never use the same form twice, since that would be to maintain you before the same lesson, and I come always to teach you new lessons and help you take new steps. My word is poured forth in many forms, by means of the conscience, by trials that speak of me, by the elements, or by my spiritual children. My word is universal. All who prepare shall hear my voice. The need for divine revelations. My divine teaching is not destined only for the spirit. No, it must come as well to the human heart, so that the spiritual as well as the corporeal parts come to harmonize. The divine word is destined to illuminate the understanding and sensitize the heart of man, and the essence that exists in that word is destined to sustain and elevate the spirit. For the life of man to be complete, he unquestionably needs spiritual bread, just as he works and struggles for material sustenance. Man does not live by bread alone, I told you in the second era, and my words are still true, for humanity could never do without spiritual sustenance, without being overwhelmed on earth by illnesses, pain, darkness, calamities, misery, and death. Materialists may say that humanity is living solely from what the earth and nature offer, without need to go looking for something spiritual that sustains it, or that strengthens it along its journey. But I must tell you that life is neither perfect nor complete, for it is an existence that lacks what is essential, which is spirituality. In all times I have manifested myself to men in a simple form so that you could understand me. I have always done so in a way within reach of your understanding and your hearts. I have descended to you to give you thereby an example of humility, coming to your humble life to raise you to a better life. This is the fulfillment of the word that I gave you in the second era, when Jesus gave thanks to his Father for having hidden his wisdom from the wise and educated, and having revealed it instead to the humble. Yes, my people, for those you call wise puff themselves up and seek to humiliate the humble, teaching them only what they consider to be the crumbs of knowledge that they receive from me. While the poor, the humble, who do know the necessities that life presents, and its privations when they come to possess something, feel that it is too much for them, and share it with others. Now I add, that when the greedy turn generous, and the arrogant become humble. In that instant they come to enjoy that which I reserve to those who practice virtue. For my love is not partial, it is universal, for all my children. The divine revelations without limits. That which has come to illuminate the third era is not my last teaching. The spiritual has no end. My law shines always like a divine sun in all consciences. Stagnancy and decadence are characteristics only of humans, and are always the result of vices, weaknesses, or uncontrolled passions. When humanity constructs its life on spiritual foundations, and bears within itself the ideal of eternity, inspired in it by my doctrine, it will have found the road of progress and perfection, and will never again leave the path of its evolution. You are greatly mistaken if you believe that I waited until now to inform you of the spiritual life. Once again, I say to you that my divine teaching began when the first human was born. It is not an exaggeration when I tell you that my lessons began with the formation of the spirits before the world was created. When humanity believed that only what it could see with its eyes existed, and did not know even the shape of the world it lived in, it conceived of a God limited to what its eyes could see. But, as humanity's mind discovered mystery after mystery, the universe kept expanding before their eyes, and the greatness and omnipotence of God continued to grow before the marveling intelligence of man. For that reason, in this time, I have had to bring you a teaching in accordance with your evolution. But I ask you, is it material science that my revelation encompasses? No, the science that I teach you speaks of an existence beyond the nature you have seen and examined for so long. My revelation uncovers the road that raises the spirit to a dwelling place from where it can discover, know, and understand all. Does it seem impossible, or at least strange to you, that God communicates spiritually with men, or that the spiritual world communicates with and manifests itself in your lives, and that the unknown worlds and dwelling places communicate with you? Would you want your level knowledge to remain stagnant, and for the Father to never reveal anything more than He already has? Do not be tied to your routine, nor limit the learning of your spirit. Today, you may deny, struggle against, and persecute my spiritual doctrine. But I know that tomorrow you will yield to the truth. All divine revelation has been fought against and denied when it appeared, but in the end, the light has prevailed. Humanity has also been skeptical of the discoveries of science, but in the end has had to yield to reality. When from the heart of humanity, the temple of the Holy Spirit is elevated to the infinite, there, in its bosom will arise new revelations, which will become greater as the spirits ascend further. How could you think that while descending to you, I could have neglected the other nations, given that all are my children? Do you believe that some are far from me or outside me, even though my spirit is universal and includes all that has been created? All life is sustained by me. It is for that reason that my universal ray has descended upon the entire globe, and the Spirit has received my influence in this, and in other worlds, for I have come to save all my creatures. My manifestation through the spokesman is intended by me to be temporary, a brief period of preparation that will serve this people as a standard, as law and principle, to testify and spread this truth, and to announce to the world the advent of the third era. Just as my manifestation through human understanding was intended to be as fleeting as lightning, so too was it foreseen that some multitudes would be called to witness and receive this revelation. In contrast, the communication from spirit to spirit shall reach all the human species, without limitation of time, for that means of seeking me, of receiving me, of prayer, of listening to and feeling me belongs to all eternity. the manifestation of the presence of God in man. I wish to convert you into my disciples, so that you learn to feel me, like the children of my spirit that you are. Why should you not feel my presence inside yourselves, since you are of my very essence, if you are part of me? You do not feel me because you are not conscious of it, because you lack spirituality and preparation, and such signs and sensations as you receive, you attribute to material causes. That is why I tell you that although I am with you, you do not perceive my presence. Now I ask you, is it true that if you are part of me, it is natural for you to feel me within your being? Is it true that meditating on this your spirit comes to merge with mine? I have come to uncover for you the real greatness that should exist in every man, for you have confused yourselves, and wishing to be great on earth, have grown smaller spiritually. I do not wish to hear you say any longer, Lord, why are you far from me? Why don't you hear me? And why do I feel alone on this journey? Beloved people, I never abandon my children. It is you who distance yourselves from me, because you have lacked faith, and because you have rejected me and closed to me the gates of your heart. I do not wish you to feel as though I am far from you. For that reason I have told you that all will feel me, all will touch me, your spirit will hear my voice, and spiritually you will behold my presence. This is how I wish your spirits to be joined to mine throughout eternity, for that is my will.